This question comes from Rebecca, who asks, if you suddenly began rising steadily at 1 foot per second, how exactly would you die? Would you freeze or suffocate first, or something else? My question for Rebecca, did you bring a coat? Rising a foot per second isn't that fast. It's substantially slower than a typical elevator. It would take you 5 to 7 seconds to rise out of arm's reach, depending on how tall your friends are. After 30 seconds, you'd be 30 feet off the ground. This is getting close to your last chance for a friend on the ground to throw you a sandwich or a water bottle or something. After a minute or two, you would be above the trees. If it's a breezy day, it would probably get slightly chillier thanks to the steady wind above the tree line. After 10 minutes, you would be above most office towers, and after 25 minutes, you'd pass the spire of the Empire State Building. The air at these heights is about 5% thinner than it is at the surface. Fortunately, your body handles air pressure changes like that all the time. Your ears may pop, but you wouldn't really notice anything else. A foot per second is just over a kilometer per hour, so after an hour, you'd be about a kilometer off the ground. At this point, you'd definitely start to get chilly. If you have a coat, you'll still be okay, although you might notice the wind starting to pick up. At about 2 hours and just over 2 kilometers, the temperature would drop below freezing. The wind would also most likely be picking up substantially. If you have any exposed skin, frostbite starts to become a concern. At this point, the air pressure would drop below that of an airliner cabin, and oxygen deprivation effects would start to become more significant. But unless you had a warm coat, the temperature drop over the next 2 hours would be a bigger problem. The scholarly authorities on freezing to death seem to be, unsurprisingly, Canadians, who have developed the most widely used model for human survival in cold air. According to them, the main determining factor in the cause of death would be your clothes. If you were nude, you'd probably succumb to hypothermia somewhere around the 5-hour mark before your oxygen ran out. If you were bundled up, you might get frostbitten, but you would probably survive long enough to reach the death zone, where you would die a different horrible death. Above 8,000 meters, above the tops of all but the highest mountains, the oxygen content in the air is too low to support human life. Near this zone, you would experience a range of symptoms, possibly including confusion, dizziness, clumsiness, impaired vision, and nausea. As you continued to rise, your blood oxygen content would fall and your breathing rate would increase to compensate until eventually it couldn't keep up. The result would be a loss of consciousness and death, which would likely happen somewhere after the 8-hour mark, which is around when you'd surpass the elevation of Mount Everest. And 2 million years later, your frozen body, still moving along steadily at a foot per second, would pass through the heliopause into interstellar space. A foot per second is also pretty close to a light year every billion years. In 6 or 7 billion years, the sun will become a red giant, but the much longer-lived Proxima Centauri is only 4.3 light years away. So, with a lot of luck and some careful aim, by the time your old planet has been vaporized, you'll be safe and sound on your new home. So, there's that.